8-8 Lion's Gate portal reading of the 8th step in the 12 and 12. We're just going to dive right into it. And if you're not familiar with the 12 and 12, it's a book with essays written by Bill Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you guys are following this channel, you know that I started it a couple of years ago to, share my journey of recovery from alcoholism and being a rock bottom drunk that drank away my life over and over, to rebuilding my life and transforming who I am, and being 4 years away from a drink. So August 23rd, 2021 was the last sip I took. That was in Florida. I was on a road trip. I had been on the road for a couple of months, and I left sober. And so I started drinking on that trip. And my last drink was almost 4 years ago. And if you follow this channel, you also know that I do use cannabis and other plant medicine as part of my everyday living. Depending on who you talk to in quote unquote recovery, they may consider that somebody who isn't completely sober. But for me, it's my personal recovery, and that's all that matters. I know where I was, and I know where I am, and health-wise, it's a big transformation. And that's all that matters. Everybody's going to have their opinion always about everything, and that doesn't matter to me. There's plenty of people out there, but through sharing my story, sharing my journey of where I was, what happened, and what I'm doing daily now to help people. And that's what I'm doing. I've already gotten lots of feedback, and I appreciate you guys reaching out, your comments, your emails, you joining the community. So speaking of which, before we get into the reading of the actual book here, I'm going to mention that if you go to the channel, after you hit like and subscribe, you can check out, there's some links, 4 or 5 links, sharing different things that I'm doing. And here now we do a book club where I'll do a reading and share a little bit. Nothing out of the ordinary, no guest coming on or anything like that. Just a simple reading of tonight's book, which is called The 12 and 12. It's a series of essays. And the way that it works is, if you guys aren't familiar with AA, it's a 12-step program. And each month you do a step, right, with your sponsor or your spiritual guide. It doesn't have to be done that way, but the way the book's written, it's January is step 1, August is step 8. So this is just part of, for me, because it's not everything that I do, part of what helps me on a daily basis to not going back to using alcohol like I did before. 4 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when it came to alcohol, I would use it for good times, for bad times. And I know now that when I look back at how I used it, I was self-medicating, right? And the healing is, after you, just because you stop, when I stopped drinking, it's like things don't just get better. No, now I get to deal with life without the solution that I had before that worked until it didn't. Everybody's story is different, right? I have my story. Some people, they don't have to go as far down to rock bottom as I did. And some people go much further, right? I'm still here. I'm alive. So let's get into this. Step 8. Made a list of all the persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 8 and 9 are concerned with personal relations. First, we take a look backward and try to discover where we have been at fault. Next, we make a vigorous attempt to repair our damage we have done. And third, having thus cleaned away the debris of the past, we consider how, with our newfound knowledge of ourselves, we may develop the best possible relations with every human being we know. This is a very large order. It is a task which we may perform with increasing skill, but never really finish. Learning how to live in the greatest peace, partnership, and brotherhood with all men and women of whatever description is a moving and fascinating adventure. Every AA has found that he can make a little headway in this new adventure of living until he first backtracks and really makes an accurate and inspiring survey of the human wreckage he has left in his wake. To a degree, he has already done this when he's taking moral inventory, which we did in step 4. But now time has come when he ought to redouble his efforts to see how many people he has hurt, and in what ways this reopening of emotional wounds, some old, some are perhaps forgotten, and some still painfully festering, will first look like purposeless and pointless pieces of surgery. But if a willing start is made, then the great advantages of doing this will quickly reveal themselves, that the pain will be lessened as one obstacle after another melts away. These obstacles, however, are very real. The first one, the most difficult, has to do with forgiveness. The moment we ponder a twisted or broken relationship with another person, our emotions go to the defensive. To escape looking at wrongs we have done another, we resentfully focus on wrongs he has done us. This is especially true if he has, in fact, behaved badly at all. Triumphantly, we seize upon this misbehavior as the perfect excuse for minimizing or forgetting our own. Let me pause there. So basically, what they're talking about, because step 9 is a big one. Step 8 is making a list of all the harms done, people, persons, entities, right? And because in step 9, it's the amends step where the recovering individual gets to go back and attempt to make amends for all harms done. And so it can, depending on where you are and your journey, for some people, when they go back and look at all the shit that they've done, like for me, I can go back, and when I go back and reflect, it's like picking off a scab that if you're good at hiding your traumas and the way you felt about them and never really processing them, this is part of that process. And this is what the 8th step is about, is putting that all out there, so that way in step 9, when I go and make these amends to these people and these whatever it is that I fucked over, and I can say, hey, I did this, what can I do to make it right? Or whatever, the amends process, depending on this. This is what is going to release that off of my shoulders, right? And that way, a year down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, because of step 8 and 9, I released that. And so it's not something that I have to go and punish myself over and eventually drink on. So when done properly, the steps in order with a sponsor or a guide, you are able to clear away the wreckage, essentially, of the things that I drank over. I've gone through and done the steps probably 5 times. I'm not actually doing them right now, but you can do it at your own pace. And once you do it the first time, it's something that you can do on your own. And then, let's say that I was to work with somebody who is newer in recovery, then, I would go through and read it with them. But basically what it's saying is here, a lot of times, when I go and look at the effed up shit that I did, sometimes it's easy to fall into a mode of thinking about what they did to me. But it's important, even though they probably did some shit too, to focus on what I did, because I'm focusing on cleaning up my side of the street. right? Because that's the shit that creeps in the back of my mind that eventually will, if you're alcoholic, will take you out to go and drink over.